At 76, Marion Jacobs didn't expect much from a city bus ride in the middle of a sweltering Texas afternoon. Her joints ached with that deep, persistent kind of tired, the kind that creeps in after years of stairs, long workdays, and too few breaks. With her worn purse tucked close and a soft sigh on her lips, she stepped onto the Route 12 city line in Wichita Falls, Texas. She gave the bus driver a quiet nod, not the kind you remember, just one of those tired, polite gestures that says, "Please, let this ride be easy." Her body begged for rest, but her heart was light. Just the night before, her granddaughter had given birth to a healthy baby boy, Elijah, the first in the family to carry that name. Marion had spent the night at the hospital, bringing soup, tidying up, and pressing a kiss to that newborn's tiny brow. Now, all she wanted was a seat, the one just behind the driver's bench, where her knees could stretch a little. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about defiance. It was about the pain in her bones and the love still warming her chest. The doors sighed shut behind her. Inside, the bus buzzed with low conversations, sneaker squeaks, the hum of traffic, and the occasional burst of laughter from kids in the back. A man 2 rows down had his phone turned up loud, sports commentary echoing into the aisle. 2 teens murmured in Spanish by a window. Marion leaned against the glass, her breath fogging up a corner as she exhaled slow. Then came the next stop. And he got on. Mid-30s. Cap pulled low. Hoodie zipped up to his chin like it was guarding something sharp. The way he moved, rigid, on edge, like he'd already chosen who to blame for his day going wrong. His eyes found her before he even dropped his fare. "You hard of hearing, or just acting dumb?" he snapped, stomping down the aisle. "Move it, Grandma. This ain't your private ride. Get to the back." Rosa Parks already had her turn. The words sliced through the chatter like a cleaver. Everything went still. Even the sports guy turned down his volume. Someone near the back laughed, but it died quickly. A few others turned to the windows, suddenly very interested in telephone poles and parking lots. But Marion didn't flinch. She looked up, not with fear, but with calm and not passive, just firm. The look of someone who had walked through fires bigger than this fool's temper. "I'm sitting right where I need to be," she said. Her voice was soft, but every word landed like a stone dropped in still water. That only made him angrier. "Don't mess with me, old lady," he growled, now standing in front of her, blocking the aisle with puffed-up rage. "You think you're special? You ain't Rosa Parks." That was ancient history. Sit with the rest of him. Nobody moved. Not Marion. Not the driver. Not a single passenger. But Marion was no longer really looking at him. Her mind had wandered, not away, but deeper. To the marches she'd watched on TV. To the signs. The fire hoses. Her brother down in Mississippi. Her first job, where she had to use a separate coffee mug. This moment wasn't just about a bus seat. It never had been. Her fingers curled tighter around her purse. But her eyes didn't blink. "I paid my fare," she said, clear and steady. "And I'm staying right here." That silence came again, but this time it was thick. Like the whole bus was holding its breath. Even the engine seemed to idle softer. But what hung in the air wasn't fear. It was something else, something waiting to turn. The man, his name might have been Derek, nobody asked, shifted on his feet. One shoe tapping quick on the rubber floor, the other planted like a dare. You could see it. He was itching for a reaction. A scream. A shove. A flinch. Anything that would let him explode harder. But Marion just sat. Still. Steady. Like she had all the time in the world. "You people always think the world owes you something," he muttered. "I scanning the bus now, looking for backup. Acting like you're better than the rest of us, like history gave you a pass." No one answered. A girl near the back, high school age, pulled out one earbud. Her eyes flicked toward Marion. She didn't speak. But her face said it all. "Is this real? Right now?" Then Derek pointed. A stiff finger jabbed the air, more warning than action. Maybe even fear disguised as anger. "I said, move." And that's when Marion finally. Marion looked up, and this time, really looked. Not through him. Not past him. Right at him. Her gaze landed hard, steady, unblinking. And something in it made the man, Derek, recoil half a step, like he felt the weight behind her eyes before he understood it. "You ever had to stare down a sheriff while he held a baton in one hand and your brother's future in the other?" she asked, her words slow and deliberate. "Ever had to walk home in a thunderstorm because the driver said the colored stop was too far down?" He didn't reply. He hadn't expected questions, certainly not ones like those. He blinked, like a man trying to tune out static in his ears. "You throw Rosa Parks at me like it's a punchline," she added, voice still level. But that name? That name carries pride, not shame. A voice behind Derek whispered, "Whoa." Whatever confidence he'd arrived with was unraveling, thread by thread. But pride's a stubborn thing. He tried to patch the moment with volume. "Don't play the victim," he barked. "You people always got some tragic sob story ready to go." A woman near the middle of the bus shifted in her seat. Derek didn't notice her. Marion did. Late 60s, short silver hair, cream-colored coat, jeans. She looked like someone's retired teacher or a sweet neighbor who brings you zucchini bread in July. She stood, and everything changed again. "That's enough," she said. Calm, cold, direct. Derek spun around, his temper flaring. "Mind your business, lady." But she didn't even flinch. "My name's Sylvia Rowan, and this is my business." A hush moved through the bus. Even the driver peeked up through the rear view. "I've been riding this line since 1978, Sylvia continued. "I've sat beside women like her for decades. And I'm not about to stand here and let some loudmouth punk drag us back in time." Derek gave a shaky laugh. "What are you, some old liberal?" "No," Sylvia replied. "I'm someone who knows right from wrong. And this." She gestured around. "This is wrong." He looked like he might shout again, might hurl another insult. But then, click. From the back of the bus came a sound. A man in a navy coat, dreadlocks tied back, held up his phone, camera rolling, screen glowing. "You're live," he said flatly. Derek froze. Not completely, but enough. Like the idea of being seen shifted something in him. "Turn that off," he demanded. "Nope," the man said, not moving. Sylvia stepped a little closer. "You had no problem performing for us," she said. "Now let everyone else see too." Marion still hadn't moved. Her purse rested in her lap, her hands folded neatly. But her presence filled the space around her like armor. She didn't have to speak anymore. The others were speaking for her now. Before Derek could regain ground, another voice cut through. Sharp, female, confident. "You got something to say, sweetheart," it called out from the rear. Derek turned sharply, puffing himself up, bracing like he expected a fight. Standing halfway down the bus was a woman in her late 20s, maybe early 30s. Black, slim, pulled-back hair. Wearing a dark green hoodie with a state college logo. Her voice was calm, measured, and impossible to ignore. "My name's Camille Dorsey," she said. "And no, you don't get to talk to her like that. Not today. Not here." Derek scoffed. "I'll say whatever I want." Camille raised an eyebrow. "You think being loud makes you right?" He scanned the bus again, but something had shifted. The room he thought he could control had rearranged itself around him. He hadn't noticed the current changing, but now he was standing in the center of it, alone. Camille stepped forward. Not charging, not threatening, just walking with purpose toward the front. "My grandfather marched in Selma," she said. "So don't throw Rosa Parks around like a joke. Not on my watch." Sylvia was still at Derek's side, the air between them shrinking. The space around him seemed smaller now, the walls closing in not with noise, but with presence. Marion remained still. But now, the silence around her pulsed. Protective, grounded. The kind of quiet that didn't need noise to make itself known. Derek tried the oldest defense in the book. He pointed to the phones. "This is harassment," he said, panicked. "She's filming me. He's filming me. I should call the cops." "Go ahead," Sylvia said. "Let's make sure they know your name too." "You wanted an audience," Camille added. "Now you've got one." Derek glanced toward the front mirror, desperate now, maybe hoping the driver would intervene. But Ruben Ortiz, the man behind the wheel, had seen enough. Mid-50s. Lean build. Wore a Wichita Falls transit cap low over his brow. He'd been driving this route for over a decade. He'd seen drunks, brawls, newborns, and breakdowns. But this was different. He pressed the gear into park. "Sir," Ruben called, voice even. "You can take a seat, or you can step off. But I'm not driving another inch until this stops." Derek turned to him, indignant. "She started it." Ruben shook his head. "Nobody started anything but you. There's a camera above your head, a bus full of people watching, and I already radioed dispatch." Now Derek hesitated. Really hesitated. He turned back to the passengers, hoping to find someone, anyone, on his side. But the girl near the back still had her phone up. The man with the dreads hadn't stopped recording. Camille stood calm. Sylvia stood firm. Marion hadn't moved. Camille walked past him on her way to the door. Not charging. Just passing through. But Derek stepped aside like she'd pushed him. She paused next to Marion. "You all right, ma'am?" Camille asked softly. Marion nodded once. Don't let that man ruin your day. Marian replied, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Child, I've had men like that try to ruin my decades. This. She smiled faintly. This is a pebble. Somewhere toward the back, a stifled laugh escaped someone's throat. Derek stood still, unsure if he should keep fighting or surrender. His mouth opened like he might shout again, but nothing came out. Then came the shift. Reuben picked up the radio and pressed the button. Dispatch, this is Route 12. I've got a non-compliant passenger, requesting transit security at Midland and Oak Ridge. His voice didn't rise. He didn't yell. He just drew a clear line. Derek blinked. This is insane, he muttered. I didn't do anything wrong. Reuben didn't respond, just kept his eyes forward. Hands on the wheel. The doors stayed closed. Sylvia folded her arms again. You had your chance. Time to go. Camille sat back down beside Marian. Looked out the window. People around the bus shifted quietly, phones raised, whispers traded. You're all pretending this is normal now? Derek tried, voice cracking. I just told a joke. That wasn't a joke, Camille shot back. That was bigotry dressed up as humor. She's fine. No one touched her, he insisted. You tried to shame her, Sylvia said, firm. You thought nobody would stand up. He opened his mouth again, but headlights flared outside. A white and blue transit SUV pulled up just ahead. Reuben stood and opened the door. 2 officers stepped on board, one black, one Latino. Uniforms neat, body cams glowing red. Afternoon, said the taller one. Which passenger's the issue? Everyone pointed at once. Derek flailed. This is ridiculous. I didn't touch anyone. Reuben walked down the steps calmly, handing the officers a printed form from the dash. Verbal aggression, racial provocation, passenger interference. It's all right here, he said. The officer turned to Derek. Sir, please step off the vehicle. I didn't break any laws. No, the officer said, his voice even. But you broke every decent rule we run this city on. If you want to explain your side, do it outside. You're delaying service. Derek stood there, rigid. He looked around one last time, searching for backup. None came. Even the guy who laughed earlier wouldn't meet his eyes. Fine, Derek muttered, storming down the aisle. You'll all regret this when it blows up online. The officer gave a faint, knowing smile. It already has. As Derek was escorted off, the doors hissed closed behind him, and the whole bus breathed out, not in celebration, in relief. The driver checked the mirror, glanced at Gloria, and asked gently, Ready to keep going, ma'am? She gave him a small nod. Thank you, he said. No, sir. Thank you, she replied. The engine roared back to life, and the bus began moving again. But this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful, restored. Camille leaned back in her seat. Sylvia adjusted her coat. A teenager in the back whispered, That was wild, to his friend. Outside, a small crowd had gathered, watching. Derek stood beside the transit officers, arms crossed, eyes flicking toward the windows like he could peer through the tint. His jaw was tight. He wasn't yelling anymore. He looked like a man desperate to rewrite the story before it slipped out of his hands, but it already had. Across the street, Brianna Kessler, a young woman on her way home from her bakery job, had started live streaming the moment the bus stopped. At first, she thought it was just a delay, until she heard the shouting. Now over 2,000 people were watching. On her feed, she whispered, Y'all, this guy just told an elderly black woman to sit in the back. Rosa Parks, but in 2025. On a city bus. The comment section blew up. Name and shame. We need more people like Sylvia and Camille. A woman in Alabama wrote, Tell Ms. Gloria she's our hero. Inside the bus, the energy was still thick. Not with fear, but with weight. With meaning. Nobody went back to scrolling or texting. Everyone sat forward. Alert. Present. Camille turned to Gloria. You want to say something? He's still out there, looking like he just got caught cheating on a test. Gloria chuckled, just a breath of sound. People like that always think they're the victim once they lose the room, she said. That's the only time they ever feel small. 2 rows back, a young man leaned forward. Ma'am, he said quietly. Thank you. My grandmother passed a couple years ago. She would have done exactly what you did. Gloria smiled and gave a nod. Then you hold her memory tight. Especially on days like this. Sylvia turned to the front, looking out the window at Derek, still talking to the officers. He's just not used to being held accountable, she said. From the driver's seat, Reuben added, Too many folks think saying something hateful is just an opinion. But that's not free speech. It's just cruelty dressed up. Another voice came from the middle of the bus, a young white woman, maybe 22, pink hair, a tablet in her lap. My mom teaches middle school, she said. They just read about the Freedom Riders. Half the class didn't believe things like this still happen. I'm going to tell her about today. Camille turned in her seat. Tell her we stood up. All of us did. Outside, Derek was raising his voice again. The officers stayed calm. One wrote on a clipboard, the other simply pointed toward the bus. You made your choice, he said. Now take responsibility. Finally, the doors closed. Derek walked off, still throwing complaints over his shoulder, but no one seemed to care anymore. Brianna zoomed her phone in as he retreated, speaking to her viewers. Remember his face, she said. But more importantly, remember hers. She turned her camera toward the bus window where Gloria sat, profile quiet, eye steady. Not defiant. Just strong. Rooted. Inside, the atmosphere shifted again. No cheers. No applause. Just deep stillness. People sitting with what had just happened. Gloria turned to Camille. How's your grandfather? Camille smiled faintly. He passed last year. Parkinson's. But he would have been proud of today. Gloria reached out, patted Camille's hand. Then we keep showing up for him. For the ones who will come after. Once Derek was gone, the silence wasn't just silence. It was calm. The bus rolled past Midland and Oak Ridge. The city resumed its rhythm. Outside, corner stores, barber shops with cracked floors, flickering gas station signs. Inside, reflection. Gloria leaned her head against the window. Not weary, just thoughtful. Remembering. Camille sat beside her, legs crossed, phone face down. Sylvia had moved up a few rows. A teen near the front began sketching at a notepad. Then a small voice broke through. Were you scared? Heads turned. A little boy, maybe 9, sat with his mother near the front. His legs dangled off the seat, not touching the floor. He looked at Gloria with wide, serious eyes. His mom gasped. Micah, honey, don't. No, it's okay, Gloria said gently. She looked right at him. Scared, she repeated. Not really. I was angry. And tired. Not sleepy tired. Tired of being treated like less. Micah nodded slowly, like he understood in a way no textbook could teach. But what if he hurt you? He asked. She took a breath before answering. Then someone else would have stood up. Just like they did today. Micah's mother's eyes filled with tears. She mouthed, thank you. Gloria simply smiled. The ride continued. They passed a mural on the side of a community center. For figures stood tall, Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, Cesar Chavez, and Rosa Parks. Gloria saw it in her peripheral vision. She didn't react, but it stayed with her. Sylvia turned back around. Miss Gloria, may I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you yell at him? Gloria exhaled, not in frustration, but from depth. Because I've yelled enough in my life. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. Just let people hang themselves with their own words. Sylvia nodded. You weren't alone on that bus. I know, Gloria replied. That's what made all the difference. A young man leaned into the aisle. It's messed up we still have to deal with this. In 2025. Camille answered, it is. But every time someone speaks up, even one voice, it moves things. Little by little. From the front, Ruben spoke just loud enough to be heard. I've got 2 daughters. If they ever find themselves in a moment like this, I hope the people around them do what y'all did today. No one applauded. No one needed to. They just looked at each other, a bus full of strangers who had become something more. At the next stop, Sylvia gathered her things. At the door, she turned back. I've lived a long time, she said. But today? Today felt good. Gloria gave her a small wave as the door shut. The bus rolled forward again. Gloria turned to Camille. Where you headed? Library. Gotta write a paper on generational trauma. Think I just found my first paragraph. Gloria chuckled. Write the truth, baby. That's the only thing left that still moves hearts. But Gloria had one more stop before heading home. As the sun dropped lower, she stepped off the bus near 14th and Reynolds. The breeze was soft, gold light bathing the sidewalk in warmth. She didn't head straight home. Instead, she walked left, past the corner store where the owner still called her Miss G, though she hadn't shopped there in years. Her steps were slow, not from pain, but from reflection. Her feet knew where they were going. They didn't ask permission. 3 blocks down, near a fenced-in park, stood the mural. Big, bold colors. Shapes you could spot from half a block away. In the center, Rosa Parks. Hands folded. eyes forward, painted so lifelike she almost breathed. Gloria crossed the street and sat on the bench in front. She didn't need to stare long. She knew this mural. This bench had held her on quiet mornings and lonely evenings. She used to come here with her husband, hand in hand, as he told army stories like they were myths. Now it was just her. She leaned back and looked at Rosa. "You'd think we'd be further by now," she murmured. "You sat, so we could stand. And still, here we are, fighting for a seat." From her purse, she pulled out a folded envelope. Inside, a photo, her granddaughter holding baby Elijah. She looked at it for a while, then looked back at the mural. "I didn't move today," she said. "Not to start something. Not out of pride. I just couldn't shrink anymore." A man passed with a stroller, nodded politely. She nodded back. "Someone once told me," she continued, "you don't change hearts by yelling over people. You do it by standing still, by showing them what dignity looks like when it doesn't bend." She tucked the photo away and glanced one last time at Rosa. "You weren't alone then. And I wasn't alone today. That means something." She rose slowly, her body feeling the day, but not her spirit. Across the street, kids played on the monkey bars. A little girl in a pink jacket pointed at the mural. "Who's that?" she asked. Her father knelt down beside her. "That's Rosa Parks, sweetheart. She helped change the world." The girl looked up. "Can I do that too?" Gloria smiled to herself and turned down the block, headed home. And if you're reading this and felt something, don't let it stop here. Speak up. Show up. Sit where you belong. And help others do the same.